This is James Lupton for Round 8 Boxing. Delighted to be joined with Edward Vasquez. Edward, how are you, mate?
I'm great, man. I'm great. In training camp, about neck deep in the training camp right now, getting ready for world title fight versus Rafael Espinoza.
This is a massive opportunity for yourself. You mentioned, obviously, excuse me, training camp. Talk to me about your training camp, Edward. Obviously, every fighter has a different training camp. What does yours consist of? How long will this training camp be for you? What process do you take? And, how long, for example, would you spar? When do you sort of start slowing down as well, closer to the fight?
Yeah, so for this fight we had about I'd say a solid 10-week notice. So that's to me that's great. That's for a world title fight and going down to 126 is that's great for me. Typically I've never had this long of a camp. Most of the time it's either a 6 week or the longest, maybe an 8 week, but that's very rare. But yeah, so like I said, we have 10 weeks to get prepared for this. We're, I think about 4 weeks in now. And yeah, we're starting to slowly pick up, the sparring. We started off with 6 rounds, then we go to eight, and we're starting to touch 10, just a little bit, maybe one session per week. We'll do 10. But we're sparring 3 days a week. I spar Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or sometimes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And on the other days we mix in skills training and things like that. But yeah, we spar 3 days a week, and then I think usually the way I like to do it, or we like to do it, is like maybe 2 weeks out is when we start to kind of slow it down a little bit, or maybe 3 weeks, because one week is just weight cut and fight week. So 3 weeks out, we start to slow it down a little bit, and more so, like it's like the work's already done, especially after 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks. It's everything that you could possibly improve on or get stronger, faster, whatever is pretty much already done. So we're just trying to keep the timing right and focus on the game plan, executing certain things, and just kind of focusing on bringing the weight down.
It fascinates me because obviously you got to peak at the right time during camp for fight night. And as you mentioned, you sort of vary the rounds. You go from your 68 to your 10 when you're sparring. You mentioned obviously about making weight and cutting weight. Everyone says it's the hardest part of camp. Is it the case for you, sort of making that weight and cutting that down?
Um, I think it's not hard if you have the right amount of time. So like right now you get 10 weeks, and it's not hard because I bring in dietitians, and they're able to lay out a plan for me, and it's a realistic plan that I just follow, to the T, and it kind of takes care of itself. It's not, no stress on me. I just kind of follow the plan, and that's it. And like I said, it takes care of itself. But yeah, if it's 4 weeks, sometimes you get 4 week notice, sometimes you get 6 week notice, and depends. I move up from 126 to 130. I move up and down, so it depends. Like if you're giving me 4 week notice, I have to do 130 pounds. There's no way I'm going down to 126. I mean, I could, but it's going to compromise my performance and my health also, and so I'd rather not even go there. But I have done that, and it doesn't feel good, that's for sure. But yeah, anything over like 8 to 10 weeks, I definitely will entertain a 126 pound fight, which is what we're doing now. And they definitely came correct. Like I said, they gave me about 10, 11 weeks, and I was kind of already preparing for something else beforehand. So it's like I just rolled right into, camp pretty much for this.
Fantastic. You mentioned getting down to 126. That'll be what you weigh in at. What do you walk around at before camp?
So like 143, 144 is usually about my walk around weight. Um, I just, it's going down to 126. It's like it's never really been easy for me, but I've also never used the dietitians or the dietitians I have now to go down to 126. I've only had to use them like when I fought Joe Cordina at 130 pounds is when I first brought on like actual professional dietitians. And so, that's what, 3 fights ago. So I haven't really been using like professional guidance for too long now. But now that I am, I'm 100% confident, and I can see the big difference maker. I'm no longer doing it the old school hard headed way of just pretty much dehydrating yourself and sitting in a sauna and all that crazy shit. So it's definitely a game changer, man, for sure.
Absolutely. Obviously, it's not obviously not as dangerous as you mentioned, there's saunas and obviously sweating it out essentially.
Yeah.
A lot of a much safer way to make weight. And as you mentioned, it's a lot easier when you've got a 10-week camp as opposed to a 4 week or a 6 week. How much of a game changer was that for you? And do you notice the benefits and the difference in having a dietitian on board and doing it the proper way?
Oh, absolutely. First off, it takes the stress off of my mind. Like I don't have to worry about or I don't have to think about what I'm gonna eat or just I follow the plan and it works. Or I don't have to be like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna lose this weight at the end or like the water cut at the end or whatever. Um, oh, sorry, I cut out for a second.
So I still got it.
Um, so yeah, I don't have to worry about like the water cut or whatever at the end. I kind of already know how, all that's gonna happen, or they take care of all that. So it's definitely a game changer. It lets me focus more on boxing and on my job of performing. And yeah, man, it's been a world of difference, that's for sure.
With some fighters camp, when they do walk around at a heavier weight than they would come in at, they would spend potentially the first week of camp just getting the weight down before they actually focus on anything in terms of boxing and technical. Does that obviously take that away from this camp now? Because obviously you don't have to worry about that. Like you mentioned, it's now just all in what you're eating essentially.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm fully focused on the fight, and like I said, I was getting ready to have a rematch with Raymond Ford, April 12th. So we kind of got notice of that before we agreed to this fight with Rafael Espinoza. So I was kind of already in pre-camp because before that, before the Raymond Ford fight, also I was gonna fight Rocky Hernandez in February. So like all these things were kind of in limbo, and so I kind of been training since like December. So I've kind of been fit and in good shape and keeping my weight down and things like that. And whenever, like I said, whenever the Raymond Ford fight came through, I was already kind of picking it up. And then the Rafael Espinoza opportunity presented itself, and I was already kind of in gear. And of course, we were able to take it back down just a little bit to where that way we don't peak too early or anything like that or overtrain. So yeah, man, like I said, my weight's been down and I've been able to fully focus on just training. I didn't really have to worry about like shedding the weight at first or wasting. To me, I don't like to waste days in the gym or waste reps just trying to lose weight. I feel like every rep's super important, so and every day super important. And I always say winning is something that comes from winning every day. So if you have to waste days just losing weight, you're losing days, and that's probably going to lose you the fight. So I haven't had to lose any days so far.
That's great to hear. You mentioned a few fights that were potentially going to happen previously. Rocky Hernandez in February. What happened with that? Why did that not come through?
It's so weird, man. We got the notice and the contract like first or second week of December, and everything was good. We negotiated for a few weeks prior to the second week of December, and everything was great. We came to an agreement. We went back and forth. Our teams came to an agreement. I got the contract in, and I was getting ready to send it out the next morning, and they're like, "Hey, fight's dead." And I'm like, "What the hell? What happened?" And ball boxing. Boxing is just full of bullshit, essentially, and I have no control over it. And I was kind of pissed off for a second, but it is what it is. Things work out the way they're supposed to, and now we're on to bigger and better things. That's for sure.
And then the Raymond Ford fight. What happened with that? Was it a case of Espinaz was presented to yourself and you decided that was a better opportunity, or did the Raymond Ford
Yeah,
fall through?
yeah. So no, me and Raymond Ford have been going back and forth. We talk a little shit to each other, but at the end of the day, we understand that it's business. So we kind of have this like, we're it's kind of mutual. Like, hey, like let's talk business. And so we'll go back and forth with each other, and we both agreed that we want to fight each other. And they sent me, or no, they didn't send me the contract. We came to an agreement, and our teams, Matchroom and Lou DiBella and our managers came together, and yeah, we were like one day away from maybe on the day that I received the contract for Rafael Espinoza, I believe I was waiting on the contract for Raymond Ford. So like in the morning, I was waiting on a contract for Raymond Ford to come in because for some reason Matchroom had been dragging their feet. It took maybe I don't know 3 4 days for the contract to come in. We had already came to an agreement on all the logistics, everything. It's going to be on April 12th at the on the Boots in his card in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and like I said, we came to an agreement, and the next morning I get a call from my management, and they got this fight offer for Rafael Espinoza, and they sent that contract in, and they came, very correct with the opportunity first off being the world title, and they came correct with the money, and and I felt. I mean, there's no way, we're in this to. There's no way to turn that down because that's what we're in this for. We're in this for world titles, right? So, but I felt bad because me and Ray Ford are going back and forth, and we had talked about us fighting, and so I reached out to Ray, respectfully, and I said, hey man, look, there's a better opportunity that came along, man, and I can't turn this down. This is what we're in this for, and I hope you understand. And he was like, hey man, he's like, go get that world title, and do what's best for your family, and we'll run it later, and it'll be worth more. So yeah, we came to an agreement, and me and Ray Ford will see each other in the future. That's for sure.
I love that. It's clearly a mutual respect between the two of you there, and you both clearly know the business of boxing as well. Uh,
Absolutely.
but it's really refreshing to hear that actually. Um, in terms of the world title fight, as you mentioned, this is what you're in the sport for. You want to become a world champion. Um, Espinoza fight, obviously giving you 10 weeks notice as well. So like you said, they come correctly top rank and they've given you every opportunity to be your best version of yourself come fight night. Just how much are you relishing this opportunity?
Oh man, it's I'm still trying to take it in. It's something that I've dreamed of since I was a kid. Fighting. I've fought in Vegas, but it was during the COVID bubble. So now I'm able to fight in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Coming from a Mexican heritage, Mexican family, that's huge. And it being for the world title and being able to, my first world title fight was overseas in Monaco. So I was able to have my parents there, but not a whole. I didn't really have anybody else. My parents, my wife, and that was it. So now I'm able to have my entire family, all my fans there. Um, it's on the undercard of where the co-main event to the Japanese star Inoue. So it's going to be massive, and so it's sweet, man. It's sweet, and it's a blessing, and like I said, I'm just trying to take it all in and try to stay focused, keep my tunnel vision going, and not let all the big moments kind of get to me. I got a job ahead of me, and I got to focus on that, and then I'll be able to kind of maybe, I don't know, we'll see, enjoy the moment for a little bit, but for now it's strictly business.
Absolutely. For yourself, obviously, you come up short against Joe Cordina, as you mentioned there. There were two fights since then. You've managed to keep hold of your high ranking. Did you feel that a world title opportunity would come knocking so soon?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I thought, when I fought Joe Cordina, like Eddie Hearn was saying that he was the best 130 pounder in the world. And when I fought him, even though I didn't get the shake, I thought, this if this is the best they got, I'm I'm up here now. And I'm in the big leagues, and this is where I belong. And my promoter, Lou DiBella, he reassured me. He said, "Hey man, look, you performed well, and the world saw what you did, and they know what you did, and it'll just be a matter of time, maybe 12 months, maybe a little bit longer before you get your next shot." And 18 months later, here we are. And so Lou DiBella wasn't too far off, and the world knows that I beat Raymond Ford and I beat Joe Cordina, so I'm arguably up there with the best 126, 130 pounders in the world, and I'm just the uncrowned champion for now.
Listen, when Ludabella talks, everybody listens because he talks sense, that man. He knows he's boxing through and through.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of the thing about Lou DiBella. He's a straight shooter, and he doesn't really sugarcoat a whole lot. And if he says something, he stands by it, and I appreciate that. I'm kind of the same way, so we kind of we click on that. When he says something, I know he's for real about it.
Your opponent, Rafael Espinoza, have you seen much of him? What's his pros? What's his cons? What's he do well? What's he not do so well?
Yeah, he's a Mexican style fighter. He goes to war. He's got a hell of a heart. He's gonna he'll go down and get back up and keep coming forward, and he's got good body shots, like just like all the Mexican fighters, and he's got a good left foot, good left uppercut. Although he's tall, he's 6'1", he doesn't really use his reach, but he's got a good team behind him also. With Manny Robles, and so he's that's one of the good things about him. He's a smart guy, and he's got a smart team behind him, and he's a game opponent, that's for sure. And I think some of the cons are that he hasn't really faced a whole lot of like American style fighters. Majority of the time, it's these Mexican guys or foreign guys that don't really have the experience of like an amateur experience or international experience, things like that. So I think he hasn't really faced tough opposition. I think when he faced tough opposition versus Robeisy Ramirez, you kind of saw, in the first fight, a different. He faced a little bit of adversity there, but even Robeisy Ramirez, he's a great fighter, but he's more of a mover, Cuban type of fighter, and so I think a Mexican style fighter beats that kind of fighter. I don't know what, 7 out of 10 times, maybe 8 out of 10 times, just due to pressure and walking a guy down, and then breaking his will. So I think that had something to do there. You can tell there was a skill difference there with Robisi and him. Robisi was better than him, in terms of talent and skill, but in terms of will, in terms of sorry, in terms of will and dedication, or in terms of will and just like being able to walk somebody down. I think that was the biggest difference there. But he's never been in there with someone like me where I could box and I can walk you down and I can make you miss and I can make you pay and I can stand in the pocket and fight with you, or I can make you miss and make you look silly. So it's just like I said, there's a few pros and cons there and a few differences, that's for sure.
You mentioned there Espinosa, he's a come forward fighter, a bit of that Mexican style. He likes a bit of a tear up. Will that play into your hands with your style?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's down here in Texas. That's what we love to do. We love to stand there and bang. But I have also an amateur background. I've been fighting since I was 8 years old. So I have also traveled around and learned different styles. And so actually, as an amateur, as been the very beginning of my pro career, I used to be more of a boxer. Hit and move type of guy, and then I kind of transitioned into a more pro style, more Mexican style, where I just kind of like to walk you down, but I can always mix it up, and that's something I love to do. In fact, it's you know sometimes we work on that in the gym, and it's more fun for me. It takes me back to my roots of being able to move and make guys look silly, use head movement, use good footwork, and you know fast, quick combination, things like that. It's fun for me, but when things need to, when we need to sit down and walk guys down and make it a fight and stand on the inside. That's something I love to do too. That's just in me.
Absolutely. And Edward, I just wanted to finish on something that we spoke about in our last interview that we finished on that interview also, and that was manifestation. We said that speaking into existence, world title fights at Dallas Cowboys Stadium, one of your dreams. And this is just the next step towards that, world title fight, go and win that first defense at the stadium. How's that sound?
Oh man, that'd be definitely be like the biggest dream come true. I'd be able to hang it up after that. That would be, man. That would check off all the boxes. That's for sure. Here at Cowboy Stadium, right up the road, in front of my people here in Texas, defending the title. Let's make it happen. And I like the way you think, man. We'll manifest that. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Edward, best of luck. Thank you very much for your time. Always a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.